So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Eazy Conversations. Thanks a lot to everyone who listened to the last episode featuring the homie Sarah Smith. Sarah, you absolutely killed it on here, and we look forward to having you on again down the road. So now for episode 98 of Eazy Conversations, I'm extremely excited, of course, to be back in the studio virtually with the homie Matt. Say what's up to the people.
What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having a great night right now. Wow, 98. We're forever approaching the big one. Um, am I a little under the weather tonight? Sure, but I'm super pumped nonetheless because we're going to be talking about two love 'em or hate 'em shows that are really huge right now. And without further ado, Eric, why don't you tell the audience what two shows we're going to be dissecting tonight?
I will do that. Flu game, Matt. I did not know you were under the weather. Maybe you had to reschedule knowing this, but you're an absolute warrior for rallying and recording with me tonight. So yes, for this episode, we're going to be doing a part 2 basically to our Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon show that we released a few months ago at this point now, wherein the first rendition we offered our initial thoughts and predictions as to what was to come in both those shows. And now, of course, if you've been following along, you know that the Rings of Power show's inaugural season is wrapped up. And at the time of recording, there's one episode left of House of the Dragon. So now we're going to be doing the bookend to that, offering our thoughts on the first seasons and getting into predictions for the second seasons for both those shows. So where we left off last episode, we had only seen 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So we didn't give that show as much time as we did House of the Dragon. So I think that's a good place for us to start, is to provide an overview of the rest of the season and just our overall thoughts on the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power show. So Matt, I'll throw it over to you first. Now that the first full season has been released, what are your thoughts on the Rings of Power show?
All right, this is a question that a lot of people at my workplace watch Rings of Power and we discuss every week. It's a question I get asked a lot. Like, are you a fan of the Lord of the Rings show? Having finished season 1, I can firmly say that I really enjoyed the show. Season 1 of the show. Is it the greatest thing ever? I'll get into that later. But is it the greatest thing ever? No. It has a lot of things, but overall, I love it. Sorry. This is just flu Matt talking right now. So I really enjoyed it. I have a lot of issues with it too, Eric, and we'll get into that later. But no, my overall thoughts, it's a really enjoyable show. And before I get into details, Eric, what are your thoughts on the show?
Okay, so my initial thoughts, like to begin, are that I really enjoyed the show. And in my opinion, it got better as the season went along, which ideally is what happens with any show. And especially from initial reaction was I wasn't as into it as I was with House of the Dragon, and we don't need to compare them right away there, but that's just what I had said in the last episode too, in that I was hooked from the start. House of the Dragon, Lord of the Rings, I didn't really know where the story was going, and there are a lot more storylines as well, but I really like where all the storylines went. And like I said, for me, as my familiarity and time spent with the characters grew, so did my appreciation for the show. And the visuals are one of the things that stand out the most, and we talked about in last episode as well. So many beautiful scenes, action-packed. And yeah, like one of the things I like the most, honestly, was the ending. I don't know if we want to skip to that right away, but yeah, when the end happened, I was itching for another episode. So that's a good sign in that I like where it's headed, and overall, I really enjoyed the first season. So those would be my opening thoughts as well. Is there a specific storyline that you want us to start off dissecting first, or where did you want to start off with the show? Past general opening thoughts.
Well, sorry, Eric. I'm glad you mentioned storylines, because that's what kind of I felt episode 3, like the middle part of the show felt a little slow to me because it was just building up every episode to what we eventually got, which to me the payoff was worth the wait.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very slow moving show in the first half, like kind of Game of Thrones-esque, bouncing around from people to people, something House of Dragons is not doing. We'll get into that later. But the Rings of Power is very you got to be super patient. Well, some episodes we only got a bit of like Elrond and Durin, and then a bit of maybe Nori and the Stranger. So like you had to wait for the going back to the characters that you like the most. But you know what? Like you said, the ending was phenomenal. All the payoffs were great. I didn't see. I mean, you called the Stranger, the reveal of the Stranger, Eric, in the first episode we discussed this. But how could you see that Sauron twist coming? I don't know. I that came out of left field for me in a good way. I had no idea that was going to happen. Let's start with the whole Halbrand, Galadriel, Numenor part. I mean, Numenor was the greatest set in my opinion in the show. Like it was mind blowing. Loved it. Oh, like it reminded me of like ancient Rome and how like all the politicians and you got the Queen Regent and the soldiers look cool. Like just the design of the armor, everything looked badass on Numenor. Introduced to Elendil and Isildur, which we know the names. But yeah, did you like that storyline, Eric?
Love that storyline, and like you, well, I'll just say right off the top. So I listened to a podcast that basically dissects this show on a weekly basis, and some of the guys on that podcast predicted that Halbrand would be Sauron. So unfortunately, I always had that in the back of my mind. This was not on my radar at all. But from, I think it was like episode 4 or 5 on, they're like, oh, like Sauron is a known like master of disguise, so he could be Halbrand. I'm like, damn it, like that makes sense. King of the Southland. So it kind of tainted not necessarily tainted, but I went in with like some sort of theory backing up what eventually did happen. So that's what I was wondering how it was for you, like how that twist hit. I still very much enjoyed the twist, don't get me wrong, because I was definitely, it wasn't 100% sure that he would be Sauron, but good call on their part. Anyways, so all that to say, I really like the plot. Halbrand, from the beginning, was kind of sketchy. You don't really know what his motivations are, and he says if he is who he says he is and turned out to not be, but I did like his and Galadriel's relationship, and especially at the end there when he asks her, as many of our villains have done, C.A. Kylo Ren, obviously Darth Vader, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others. They're always asking our protagonists to join them on the dark side, and it would have been cool to see her go with them actually to maybe flip the script a little bit on what we know of Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. All that being said, in Numenor, yes, absolutely loved it. I thought it was, like you said, the most majestic setting, very different from what we've seen in Lord of the Rings, and it kind of brought back to like Minas Tirith in its prime, like and even on a greater scale, like Minas Tirith is almost a poor city's Numenor. It wishes it was Numenor, so it was really cool to see the kings and queens, like the big statues, like the water, just looked really cool. I was a big fan of Elendil as well. I thought he was a really cool character, like a wise man, and the burden of responsibility of leadership on him, and I also feel like there's something more to it with the story with him and his deceased wife. He was very quick to dismiss any divulging of details on how she died, like how she drowned. Like, that's it. I don't want to talk about it. So a little sketchy there, Elendil. Isildur too, I was definitely surprised to see him. I did not think the storyline would start this close to the fall of Sauron, because when Isildur kills Sauron eventually, he's not that old, I want to say. So like this Isildur is also not that young necessarily. Probably maybe 19, early 20s. Anyways, so I was surprised to see him there, but definitely loved his progression through like the Navy and kind of shooting himself in the foot, like not wanting to follow the path that's been laid down in front of him by his father. So a conflicted youth. I like that for sure. Yeah. And I like Muriel the Queen as well. So her getting into the blindness as well, losing one of her senses. So I'm interested to see how she's going to be as a leader going forward. And yeah, Galadriel from day one was the MVP of the show, in my opinion. She was my favorite character, I would say. I think badass, like a cool lead character, I thought. And a different Galadriel rendition than what we see her in Lord of the Rings as well, where she's now extremely old and very wise, calm, although she does give in to temptation briefly when Frodo offers her the ring. That's right. But yeah, no, those would be my thoughts on the Numenor plot. I really enjoyed it, and like you, I do agree that it was kind of slow, and then once they left Numenor, that's when it picked up. especially on the action front.
I like that Isildur, so much potential with this might be jumping to like what we're gonna expect, but like Isildur, this is not the Isildur we know that told Elrond to F off when he said cast it into the fire when he got the ring. Like this is a totally different, like the transformation, the potential to have with this character is extraordinary. And I hope they do that in the coming seasons.
Yeah.
He's a super important character. So is his father. So like perfect setup for that, showing us just enough, I think. Well, I honestly, like, this show could have showed us, like, this show could have been twice as long and still, like, we would have, like, could have went to more detail. That's how much there is to, like, present to the audience. Galadriel, too. I love the whole, okay, so basically once Mount Doom erupts, like, the show had my full attention. Like, now I had to watch the show as soon as it came out. When before I could watch it, like, could wait a couple days. But, like, once that, like, the handle went into the ground and erupted a volcano, I was like, holy shit, this show's real now. I guess we can jump into like villagers versus orcs, because we got a lot of like battles and actions with that. The Southlanders versus the orcs. Eric, first, the look of the orcs and the fighting was perfect. It was so much better than the Hobbit. What do you think about, like, just aesthetically, the orcs? Weren't they so like gruesome and badass?
The orcs looked fantastic. They looked like more orc than they did in Lord of the Rings, I would say. Like I said, the budget again was incredible. They looked fantastic, even with the like long like crows beaks on their heads, like the skulls and all that. Like that was kind of weird, but also creepy. And I like that they had some different drip back in the like when Sauron was still out at large, right? So it was cool to see what they looked like in this series. I was a big fan, unsurprisingly, of the villain Adar. I thought he was very mysterious, and it was cool to see like a fallen elf and like the first Uruk as well. So it was very, very cool to follow him. I'm glad he's still kicking, not dead yet. And yes, I completely agree. The series fully picked up episode 6 when we get all the action between the villagers and Arondir versus Adar and his orcs. Fantastic stuff, and some men in there as well, men and women. So all of those battles were fantastic. Then of course the Númenóreans appearing like Gandalf at the end of Lord of the Rings, Two Towers at Helm's Deep was almost like kind of suspicious timing, but we'll let it slide. The good guys have to win, but they ultimately didn't, because then Waldorf, or whatever his name was, got to put the handle in, and then the tunnel payoff, like, which I didn't see coming at all. The tunnel payoff, that's what they're doing, trying to get some water and to get the volcano to erupt. That was really cool, and what a way to end an episode. Like that was probably the peak. That and episode 8 were the best endings, no doubt in my mind. But yes, I love the action. I thought, of course, that when the villagers won seemingly the battle at the village in the first like 5 minutes, you know that it's not over. Like I would have been furious if that was the case. Like you can't tell me these peasants can take down a good battalion of orcs. And but even though they had Arondir with them, he was a great character actually. He got better as time went on. I found him to be quite dull at first, honestly. But then his relationship with Bronwyn was kind of interesting to follow. But the how do I word this? Theo was a bitch. I mean, there's no other way to say it, honestly. I wasn't a fan of him from day one, and he only got worse as the season went on. Didn't really know where they were going with him. Like, if he was going to turn, maybe would have preferred that. I just want him to die at this point. There's no real need for him to continue to be a prominent character. We'll see what happens. Those are my opening thoughts on the Southland plot. I really enjoyed it. That and the Numenor were definitely actually, no, you know what? I like the dwarf and elf plot as well. So, no, a lot of good plots. So, Southland was a good plot, especially for the action and, like, seeing what would become... Like, you said that this was going to become Mordor, so...
And, I was curious to see what the battle scenes were going to look like when I first started the show, like, when we just watched episode 1 and 2, because, like, Lord of the Rings... The battle scenes in the original trilogy have not aged a day. They're perfect. So I was like, they have to have good battle scenes in this show, and they're really great. And those episodes flew by for me.
Yep.
Well, the last 4, but you said the dwarven, elven storylines, and I mean, not if I'm right, but like episode 8 finishes with the Balrog, right?
No, that's 7
It's like
actually.
they were 7. Okay, well that was a great ending too,
It
actually.
was. It
But
was.
let's jump into like the Balrog and the
Mm-hmm.
dwarves and Elrond. Durin was. I loved Durin the more I got to know him,
Yeah.
especially the scenes with his dad, where
Mm.
he's like, he's trying to convince his dad of like those were like great like not arguments but just like a great discourse.
Mm.
And I felt so bad for Durin and the whole thing with saving the elves and what the dwarves were mining and what it led to, the creation, like the rings. I didn't think that would be season 1 material, so it was nice to see all that. Um, what did you think? Like, did you find Elrond and Durin, like, did you find it slow at all at the start? Like, I find it's the storyline that didn't progress as much as the other ones. Um, in terms of like when we were watching Durin and Elrond, I felt a lot of times like I just want to go back to the humans. Do you feel that
Okay.
way, Eric?
No, not really, honestly, but I see what you're saying in that it was a slow moving storyline, and maybe we got
Yeah,
a lot of repetitive conversation based scenes with them, which I can definitely see that. And now, like, obviously, I've only seen each episode once, so I forget exactly how much time it took to really get things moving, but I do remember it being slow. But I enjoyed them nonetheless. Like, I thought Elrond and Durin's on screen chemistry as like long lost friends or yeah like old friends really reuniting for the first time in 20 years. I thought they did a great job at showcasing the tension and then what it took to convince one another to work together, and then like you said the layers of convincing during the third his father there. So I really enjoyed it,
yeah,
and then yeah, once it got moving, it just got, and like you said, Durin got better as well, scene after scene. He had some pretty good, funny moments as well, bringing some light-hearted humor to the seriousness of like the fate of the elves, their race, like being extinct potentially. Like say that again. The entire fate of our race is in your hands. That was a pretty funny scene there. It's like I enjoyed all that stuff. And yeah, of course, the Balrog at the end. You knew there was gonna be something when that leaf went into the cave and it just kept flying. Like I had a feeling it was gonna be the Balrog, honestly, because they said, like, and I guess this is like thousands of years later, but Saruman says that he knows the dwarves awoke something in the depths of the caves. So you know, and you eventually know the
yeah,
Balrog comes. So really cool to see though, and I hope we see it in season 2 as well. That's they're not just gonna show us the Balrog and be like, yep, it's there, and you're gonna see it in the Fellowship of the Ring for the
yeah.
first time. So that was really cool. But no, I enjoyed that storyline honestly. It would probably be my third favorite storyline. I'm putting the Hobbit storyline dead last, like by a
Yeah.
friggin' country Hobbiton mile. It was whenever we went to that storyline, it was almost like a fast forward situation. Of course, I didn't, but yeah, no, I really like the dwarf and the dwarf and elf, the dwarf storyline. I thought it was good. No complaints, and yeah, looking forward to see what they do with those two characters. Okay, how does it end with Elrond? Is he still in the? No, he has the ring. Never mind. Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you said something amazing. The show is doing an amazing job at like taking stuff from the Lord of the Rings original trilogy and like it's like, oh, remember when like what Saruman said. Remember when he said this? Well, here you go. And Saruman also says in the first one, like when he's talking to the Uruk-hai, he's like, you were elves once, but you were
Mm,
mutated and tortured. It's like Adar right there.
true.
Like a lot of stuff like that in the show that I
Nice.
love. Um, yeah, the Elrond. So like Halbrand hands them this little like piece to make the rings. Like they think he's good. I don't know. I'll be honest. I didn't really have subtitles on. Well, big mistake.
Big
But like I was
mistake.
really confused with like the gemstones and like crafting. First, they wanted to craft something bigger, maybe a crown. Then they decided to go with 3 rings. But like
Mm.
I got a little lost with all like the mining and the gemstones and all that, and why the dwarves needed that. Like, did they need those rings to survive? Maybe, right? Um,
Well, so my
but
question now is, or my understanding of the power of the rings is that it has the healing component and property of the mithril, right? And them wearing those rings will maybe in some way radiate onto their entire race, and the healing and preserving properties will go like to every other elf as well. Because it's true, other than the ring, the one ring to rule them all, we don't really see any of these rings do anything in the trilogy. So I hope that they get into that in the later seasons as far as explaining what each ring does. Like, we know that Aragorn has a ring that has two serpents, one devouring a crown of flowers and the other wearing one, so what does that ring do? Who knows? Yeah, I thought it was cool though how the season ended with those 3 rings being forged. Like you, I didn't know when we were actually going to be seeing rings. And just throwing this out there as well, for next season I think we're going to see the rings for the dwarves, and depending how long this show goes for, the men at some point. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to give us rings for everybody in every season, though. That's the only thing. My guy, the Witch King of Angmar, he's going to show up at some point, I hope. And then the Sauron, I think he has to forge his ring last, right? I really hoped that they wouldn't show Halbrand, Sauron, forge his own ring at the end. That would have been really rushed if he was just like up in Mount Doom just chopping it up in there. I'm glad they didn't go about it that way, because that is a huge moment that needs to be perfectly timed.
Well, I'll say what I was going to say for the predictions for future seasons, but just we have to address, like you said, our least favorite storyline, Nori and the Harfoots and the Stranger. I did like where it led off, which is basically the creation of them not being nomads anymore and creating like the Shire, I guess, and their like village. But I did like the finale with the Stranger and those 3 witch lady thingies. I don't even know what they are. Yeah, that was cool. And I really did believe it was Sauron at first. Like, I was super taken in by that. Like, when they're like, Master, we found you. I'm like, holy shit, they made us think it's Gandalf. It's really Sauron. I got really caught into that. Although there are so many clues that it is Gandalf before that, just like his mannerisms and what he does. And I love when he says, like, follow your nose and all that. Like, and you're like, yeah, how could you not know it's Gandalf?
Yeah.
But no, him like, facing them was really cool, actually. Like, you like the finale was, it made that storyline a little better, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And just on that last point too, that's basically the writers being like, hey, if you didn't know this was Gandalf by now, I guess for all the idiots who haven't figured it out by now, following, like, that was a dead giveaway at the end, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I liked how that episode opened, honestly, like kind of flipping it on us, making us think that he was Sauron. Obviously, knowing that, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, it's probably Halbrand who's Sauron, so I didn't buy it at all. And I don't know what my perception would have been if I didn't know that, right? So, and I liked, it would have been like rough to see like that they've been helping him this whole time. The hobbits have been going to bat for him, and turns out he's Sauron. But I like that fight scene where he saved them all, and I guess they kind of saved themselves as well. It was some good action as well. Good additional intrigue for that storyline. One of them did pass away. He got killed by the witches. I don't know who those, like you, I don't know who those witches are. Like some sort of ancient followers of Sauron. But yeah, thought it was good. And I like where Nori, like, I definitely didn't hate Nori's character at all. It's just I was never hooked into that storyline. And even with Gandalf, right? Like, there wasn't really much going on with him. He didn't say much. He's kind of just discovering his powers slowly yet surely. Like, out of nowhere, he turns a burnt tree into a blossoming orchard, which I thought that was a bit much. Like, overnight, there's fucking the most apples they've ever seen in the harvest. Anyways, like, it's no big deal there. It's a fantasy show, but there just wasn't that much happening. The witches are chasing them and all that, and it's going to lead to some sort of showdown, but I always prefer the other 3.
Yeah, like, we're following this whole storyline. It's just basically the way to introduce Gandalf back in the show. It could have been cut back, or I don't know, if let's say Gandalf had appeared out of the sky and been fully, like, been able to speak and like know who he is, and
Yeah.
would that have just been better? But we are introduced to we were introduced to every single race, and that was the way of doing the Hobbits. So, it was good that we saw some Hobbit action. Just like you said, Eric, like it was like my phone may have been coming out of my hand during those parts, maybe.
Yeah.
The scenes with Nori and Poppy and her, I don't know, like when her dad injures himself, it's like, no, go without me. No, come along, you'll be fine. Like we've seen that shit in movies and shows all the time.
Dude,
that
goodbye scene was so long too. It was actually 10 minutes long. I couldn't believe it was still going on while I was watching it. I had to scroll back to when it started. Insanely long. Poppy running away and then running back at the last minute as she's about to walk off. I'm like, my God, this better not drag on for more than 35 seconds here. But anyways, it was. I'm interested to see where Nori and the G Unit end up in season 2, and I didn't even think of that, honestly. I guess I missed that they said they were gonna look to colonize an area. I completely missed that. So nice Easter egg that she's gonna be like a Christopher Columbus-esque character and discover the Shire. So that's cool. Like, so we'll see where that all leads. And maybe it's better that Gandalf wasn't fully at his full powerful capacity, because then it would have tipped the scales too much in the favor of light, and it's a battle against Sauron that they need to win without him. I don't know. I'm just thought of that off the top here, because I don't know if he did participate in that battle, the last alliance between men and elves. It's not men and elves and meteor men. So it's you can't have Gandalf in there. It's easy dub. So yeah, no, I'm interested to see what they do with that storyline. Yeah.
Do you want to get into predictions?
Yeah. So like those are mine, really, that we're gonna see more rings be forged. That rings are forged. I think it's safe to say that we're gonna see dwarves for sure up next, and then men. It's just, are we gonna see both in the same season? And I want to see more Sauron. Like, now that we know who he is, and his honestly, his speech with Galadriel was big time Vecna vibes for me. Like his coming out and announcing that he is one is Vecna and all that. Not at the same level though. Like, I don't think the acting was to the same level as Vecna's actor, Jamie Campbell Bower, I think. But it's still great. Like, I love that scene, especially when you see the reflection of Galadriel and Halbrand in the water, and then he's in his Sauron armor, and she's looking to have like some sort of Sauron-esque armor as well. Like, that was a sick shot. I was pumped. And like I said, I was kind of hoping that she would join him. But anyways, I'm interested to see what they do with them, and I want to see a layered villain in Sauron, in that he wants to heal Middle-earth. I feel like that's also a classic villain mentality, like a Thanos-esque of like, what I'm doing is not genocide, it's like some sort of justice or whatever, or the strongest sacrifices require the strongest wills, and Sauron will be that dude. So yeah, more Sauron. Yeah, that's pretty much what I want to see the most. Less, I don't really want to see like the Southlanders, to be honest. Like, I don't want to see Theo, Bronwyn, Arondir, sure, but then I guess you have to have Theo. Anyways, that's it for me for now. What about you, Matt?
What I would like to see is maybe 3-4 more seasons, and I want to see like a whole season, basically like the fall of the dwarves in Khazad-dûm.
Nice.
I want to see some Balrog like destruction.
Yeah. Good call.
Basically, I can't stop thinking about the finale of the show, which to me, without a doubt, should be the last alliance, because we get like 2 minutes of it in the first Lord of the Rings movie, and it's like one of the best parts of the movie, and that could be like a whole like 6-episode epicness, like just the scale of everything going on and the stakes. Although we already know the result, that's the only downside. But I just want everything in the show to build up to that moment. We're gonna have to see the elves and the men become friends and like agree with each other, and like a reconciliation, I guess a reconciliation, yeah. but like the dwarves are gonna have to like hit it hard. I'm fine. They're gonna have to. They're gonna take a big hit. I'm thinking the next coming seasons.
That's a good call.
I'm so curious though. The 9 rings, like you mentioned them. It's like they mentioned that too in the first movie. 9 were giving to the race of men, like all kings and stuff. But like I can't wait to meet like the other men in the show and like future lords, and I don't know. Are they going to be like evil already? Or I'm just curious to see the new characters. I don't know. Do you think, Eric, we will have? I think we might have huge time jumps coming, kind of like House of the Dragon for like other seasons, where it's like, okay, 10 years in the future, you're like, Isildur, different actor.
Yeah.
I could totally see that happening. Different actor. Let's go. Longer hair now.
Yeah.
Just like in Lord of the Rings, and show like cities like Minas Morgul and like stuff we see in Lord of the Rings, in Mordor, the building of a tower by a door.
I was gonna say, yeah.
What would be cool is like a whole like point of view from the bad guys, which we got in this, but like always kind of like them talking to the humans or around here, but like them just themselves, like what's going on there. Although we might not give a shit because we can't relate to any of them. Although Adar is a little like, you kind of feel he's not just one-dimensional. So no, I'm super curious too, Eric. I think this show has more potential than House of the Dragon, because at the end of the day, Lord of the Rings is like way more. There's so much more myth and lore to Lord of the Rings than like Game of Thrones, and Lord of the Rings could be like this show could go down as one of the greatest if they keep elevating after every season. Sure, the first season, it's not like super highly rated. A lot of people don't like it, but like if you're patient and you give it a chance, it's actually a really good show, and it ends really strongly. And a lot of people, I bet you, have only seen the first half and they gave up on it, but the ending is, it's worth watching the show just for like the last 4 episodes. So yeah, that's what I think. That's what I wish to see in the future for this show.
Yeah, I agree, man. Very well said. And yes, extremely strong back half. Great endings for those last 3 for sure. I forget how episode 5 ends, but it's probably like the dawn or the minutes before the battle in episode 6, right? The calm before the storm, if you will. Yeah, I agree. I would love to see a point of view from the villains, honestly. And I hadn't even thought of a time jump, honestly, but it makes total sense. Unless the Tower of Barad-dûr is built after the fall of Sauron, right? Maybe it only pops up like from his servants building like some sort of shrine in his honor, and like the eye appears when I don't even know when the eye appears. Like I really don't know the lore of Lord of the Rings either, but that could be when that happens. But also it would make sense that Sauron has his own like his outpost and his temple basically to chill in when he's not out trying to conquer Middle Earth. So I would love to see that be built as well. I agree with you. A time jump would be cool too, to get our characters looking more like they do in Fellowship of the Ring. And yes, the last season should absolutely be 90% battle. Transformers Dark of the Moon. That's what it should be. Just non-stop battle. But I also want to see, and I wonder if we will see, some sort of love story between Galadriel and Sauron. Like, I don't know if that's a reach or if that's just what he wants, but maybe there's something there, and it would be interesting to see them explore that dynamic. Because it felt like there was like sparks flying with everybody in Galadriel. I mean, I don't blame them, but it's I feel like her and Halbrand were vibing a little more, and it'll be interesting to see if they want to explore that side of her character, and especially of his character, right? Because most villains turn to the dark is normally due to either loss with their families or a loved one, and then their mindset is they want to shape the world to fit their needs, which normally stems from loss. So I like I said already, I want to see more of his mentality and psychology dissected, and then the more characters, more rings. That's it. I mean, but I hadn't thought of the Fall of the Dwarves as well, which I could definitely see that as well. You're not just throwing the Balrog in there to not wreak havoc on Khazad-dûm, like you said. But before then, the dwarves need their rings. So will the Balrog take them out next season or the one after that? And also, I wonder if the dwarves will be the, for lack of a better word here, the middlemen in between the elves and the men, because now the dwarves are starting to develop a kind of bridge the gap between the elves and dwarves. So now they'll maybe have to broker some sort of peace between the elves and men. But yeah, like we haven't seen any men other than the Southlanders and the Númenóreans. So, like I said, Witch King of Angmar, I'm pumped to see what they do with him. And yeah, is he already off the bat going to be a sketchy character who's already in line with Sauron? Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's already if they're already in leagues together. So, I'm pumped. Like you said, a lot of potential for this, and excited to see where it goes for season 2 and onwards.
Yeah, well said, Eric. One last thing to add, it's like maybe either show us men from like different, like the Haradrim that we see with the elephants in the third movie.
Yeah.
Like different parts of Middle Earth, you know, or the pirate with their corsair ships, and I don't know, like different ethnicities of Lord of the Rings, which we've already actually seen a lot in this show. But yeah, no, great show. A lot different from our next show though, and we should get into that now.
Dive into it right now. House of the Dragon, 9 episodes in, and when we recorded last, I think, I was definitely leaning more. I was preferring House of the Dragon personally. After 9 episodes, I'll just say what my preference is right now. I'm still House of the Dragon above Rings of Power personally. My main reasoning is I do enjoy the political scheming and dialogue heavy structure of the show. And I'm very these characters are evoking stronger feelings for me than the ones in Rings of Power. Like, it's not even close. I'm so invested in Team Rhaenyra right now and hating on Kristen Cole, how wrong we were about that scumbag. Alicent and like the High Towers there. The acting, in my opinion, is extremely strong in House of the Dragon. In my Olivia Cook, who plays Alicent to the the older version of her, she's like a year older than me, is doing an amazing job as Alicent. Like, she's really making you dislike her, but also is giving a nuanced performance where you don't feel bad for her in the situation she's in, but you can tell that she's conflicted in what she's doing and doesn't really want to take out her childhood best friend like her father wants. So I'm loving all these family ties and dynamics. Anyways, there's a lot I want to say on this, so I'll pass it off to you. What are your thoughts on House of the Dragon so far through 9 episodes?
You said a lot of great stuff there, Eric. And for House of Dragons, for me, like, the stakes are so much higher. The dialogue and acting is on another level in terms of like serious tone. I think I have more fun and entertainment watching Rings of Power, like the battle scenes and all the callbacks to the movies. But like, I'm really invested in like what's gonna happen in House of the Dragon. I've heard a lot of negative things from my coworkers that are like, "Oh, the show's dropped off. It's not as good." And the reason they give is the time jumps, which the time jumps are jarring and make us, on paper, make us care less because we're less like, oh, now the different actors playing these characters, like who, like, that was jarring at first, like the Rhaenyra actress change and Alicent actress change, like that was jarring to me. They both do a great job. Olivia Cook, I've always loved her, even from her early days on Bates Motel. I love that actress. It's a jarring House of the Dragon. If you criticize it, I'm not gonna like fight it too much, because I agree it is weird seeing all these time jumps, Eric. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, did you like that at first? Like, 5 years later, next episode. Next episode's like a decade later or 8 years later. Yeah. Is it a necessity, or they're just being like, let's get this show rolling?
Yeah. So I definitely defended the time jumps for quite some time. But now I'm kind of sick of them, honestly. I don't want to see more time jumps. And thankfully, from episode 8 to 9, there were none. But yeah, from the turn, and I knew that there was going to be a big time jump from episode 5 to 6, where the actors would change. But I wasn't expecting another big time jump after that as well, which I did not really like personally. Now I'm at peace with it as long as there are no other time jumps that are major from this point on. I want Allison's kids and Rhaenyra's kids to be like they're gonna be, I think, the big players going forward. I do think the adults at some point are gonna be killed, and it's gonna be the kids who are gonna be handling the succession, obviously, and all that there. Like I said, yeah, I don't want to see more time jumps. Like the jump, in my opinion, from episode, I think it was 7 to 8, where Allison's kids aged so much. Like Aemond looks like he's 35 years old, and he was 13 years old the episode before. It's insane. But the actor is actually just 20 years old. So it actually isn't that crazy of a time jump. That actor just literally, he is what he is. Like he's 20 and he looks old. Like there's no other way around it. But I feel like in relation to the other characters around him, it does look off. Like he looks way older than his mom, his older brother, his everyone else. But that being said, I think that character is going to be a badass and someone to hate because, like I said, I'm not on that. Like I'm not Team Alicent here. So yeah, all that to say, time jumps. It's too bad because I really liked Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra. I thought she was the best character. Leading up to the time jump. I still obviously like Rhaenyra a lot, but she played that character so well, and all the time jumps, you miss out on a lot of storytelling. Like there's no other way to put it. And it's kind of hard to believe that a character's thought process would still be the same one episode to the next if 6 years have passed in between. It's like, yo, Kristen Cole, like you're still this mad at Rhaenyra who dumped you 20 years ago. Makes no sense. You know what I mean? Like you'd think that with so much time that's passed, they'd learn to move on from certain things, and we just miss out on a lot of character dynamics, growth, all that. And there's only so much you can do in showing how people have changed over time. Like I think they're doing a pretty good job at that, but overall, it's not my preferred way of telling a story. So I like all that to say, I hope we don't see too many more time jumps going forward.
I'm 100% with you. What they did do a great job with the time jumps is showing King Viserys' like decaying body, and he like changed in every time jump perfectly. Like Paddy Considine, super well acted, super great actor. That was nice to see actually, like his slow decay. Because I thought he was a goner like episode freaking 4 or 3 or whatever. But no, like he's a tough old bastard. You know, right up to his last breath in episode 8 at the end. But I don't know. There's a lot of great things I love about the show. Number one being like you said, the political power struggle. You see it throughout history, our history. You see it in so many other shows. It's so fascinating. It's amazing. Stuff I don't like is like episode 8, which is Lord of the Tides, which is all about the succession of like Lord Corlys's kingdom or whatever. But like they spent a whole episode on like I just feel like they're doing all these time jumps, but are they showing us the right stuff, or are they all just setting it up for season 2? And this is super important that this kid got named the successor, and it's going to come back tenfold later on, which I think it will, of course. Yeah. It gave us it's given us some like jump out of our couch seats moments with like Corlys's brother getting beheaded by Daemon, like not beheaded, but like like the crane was split in half. Yeah. Cranium, like frig. That was cool. And
great moment.
The Green Council. The last episode was great. I love the Green Council.
Same. All
Otto and Alicent's point of view. No Targaryens mostly, and I loved it, you know, and that's the shit I love right there. Just like the whisperings in the shadows, you know, Mr. with the gimp leg, Lord
Larys, I think. Yeah.
Larys. He's like Littlefinger is my best friend compared to this guy.
Yeah, he's got nothing on like, Larys.
Larys just makes my skin crawl on that scene with Alicent, and she keeps hiking up her skirt. That was well done because it made me really uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm glad I was watching it alone. Yeah.
I just have like bullet points on like stuff I want to talk about, like, and a lot for each character. And my note for Larys is fuck Larys, straight up. Not a fan, but he's a great character, right? Like you need those kind of creepy characters, especially in Thrones, to hate, and he plays that role perfectly. And he's like the OG master of whispers and like the Lord of Spies and all that. And yeah, like the foot fetish Laris. That was an uncomfortable scene. You definitely feel bad. They're doing a great job at making you feel bad for Alicent in this position that she's in and doesn't really want to be in either. But he is a great character. I am rest in peace to the rest of his house, though. How strong! I would have liked to see them around longer because I did like the father and the baby daddy for Rhaenyra. Yes, I like Green Council a lot. I thought that was a great episode, seeing like the motivations for all the characters as well. Like Aemon, just bring it back to him real quick. Like he wants to be king, whereas his brother is completely unfit. Does his brother not look like Evan Peters too? That's all I thought watching. Yeah. He looks like a young Evan Peters. Now he got a little taste of power in front of the crowd, and he looked extremely uncomfortable at first, but then that flipped on a dime. So he's all excited to be king. I want to see now some sibling violence between those two. I really don't know who's gonna end up on the throne, right? If it's gonna be Rhaenyra's kids, if it's gonna still be Alicent's kids, but Aegon is not the man who deserves to be on the throne. I don't think. He looks like he could be a Joffrey, honestly, at this point. And he hasn't really shown, or I guess he has been kind of an ass to his cousins. And like that whole family dinner there that they had, like Viserys' final dinner with them, like he just kept going back and forth with them. They're like talking about sex and stuff, like, oh, I can show you the ropes, whatever. Like just being annoying. And then Aemon with his toast, like two strong boys, very strong. It's like, oh man, like these people there, they just love stirring the pot. And then you have their weirdo sister too. I wonder how she fits in as well. I don't know, because she's been so minor, just been saying these random things that have ended up happening. Is she a witch of some sort? Like, does she have some sort of foresight? Like she kept saying the beast is under the floor or the tiles, and then both Aegon was under the floor, and the dragon eventually came up at the end there with Rhaenys. So she's there's something going on with her. I feel like they're not just making her say these things. And it's just like, yeah, she's weird, you know? Like, I think there's going to be something with her.
Damn. I did not get that.
And my last note I have on the Alicent front is I still think there's hope for the lesbian plot with her and Rhaenyra. I do think they hinted that she has perhaps feelings for Rhaenyra, and that, oh, are you more doing this to protect the memory of your fallen husband or of love for your childhood friend? And she hesitates on that and doesn't really give an answer. I still feel like there's something there, maybe more one-sided, Alicent towards Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra has clearly been interested in Daemon. Like that's been, I think anyways, been pretty obvious, and now they're together. So I think there's gonna be something there in season 2. We'll see. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Team Green, if you will.
Yeah, my thoughts on the Hightowers, yes, they're the bad guys. I'm cheering for the Targaryens. I love Alicent, though. Like, so smart in episode 9. First thing she says is, like, yeah, he whispered to me his last wishes right before he died. Mm-hmm. Here's what he wanted. Like, that's brilliant. That's genius. No one can refute her. No one can say no. It's like, no, that was so smart of her. And I low-key like Aemon. I think he's a badass, man. Mm-hmm. As a kid, he's the second son. He's not getting as much attention. He's definitely the strongest child of Alicent. He freaking earns that dragon. Mm-hmm. He gets his eye mangled, and he's like, oh, it was worth it. I got a dragon. Like, he's pretty... We're going to see a lot of them. We're going to see... Maybe not by, like, dialogue, but he's going to be doing lots of things, is my guess. Yeah. And that actor they picked for him is perfect. You know, huge jaw, like big jaw, like you know, he's fearsome. Yeah. I love the whole 2 things with the knights episode 9 with like the Kingsguard commander Sir Herod and like Christian Cole, that whole like thing in the council room, and like Christian Cole, I just want to punch his face. He's God. Like a face, but he's really strong though. He can back it up. He's a really skilled fighter, so it's like you can't mess with him too much. You know, Sir Herod loves Rhaenyra, so it's like he's dipping out. I mean, how epic was the last, like, what was it, 2 minutes of episode 9 with Rhaenys popping out with her dragon? I did not expect that. I was like, she went down some stairs, and I'm like, holy shit, she's getting her dragon, and literally issuing the biggest warning ever. Like, I could have roasted all of you right now, but I didn't. What you gonna do about it?
I mean, we all know that's a huge mistake that she didn't roast them, but otherwise we wouldn't have a show.
True.
So we can't fault her too much. She's looking out for the viewers at home. But would have liked to see her roast a couple of them, though. Would have been nice to see. But, yeah, Sir Harold... Harrod? I thought it was Harold. Anyway, Sir Harrod. They don't like the common names, so I'm not surprised that it's Sir Harrod. I like him as well. I knew he wouldn't flip on Rhaenyra. I would have loved to see him kill... I can't stand Sir Kristen Cole. He gets worse by the episode. It's unreal. But I guess kudos to the actors doing a good job. Also kind of crazy, though, how he's barely aged in these 20-some years I've gone on. Like, they probably should have cast another actor. And then, anyway, that's my opinion there. Like, this dude's like 40 or something there. Like, I think he's like in his 20s or 30s. Anyways. So, hate him. I need Daemon or Herod to kill him in season 2. The fact that he's the one who put the crown on Aegon too, I found was insane. It made no sense. He just keeps getting promoted too. Like doing the least and getting the most. But yeah, he's definitely a cocky little prick and thinks he can get away. Literally get out of jail free card. How to get away with murder is just be Kristen Cole. Slam that guy's face in his marble, and that was a wrap. I felt bad for Lord Beesbury, but I knew he was done. As soon as you see Kristen Cole walk behind him, like, all right, this guy's dead. So yeah. I'll be furious if he's around in season 3. I'll just say that. You guys gots to go in season 2.
Okay, so Christian Cole, he slept with Rhaenyra when she was younger, right?
Yep.
And then Rhaenyra gets handed that tea by the maester. Does she actually? Do we see her? Sorry. Do we see her drink it? No. Is her first kid Christian Cole's kid, or is it Sir Harwin's? Someone asked me that at work the other day, and I was like, what?
Wow.
Maybe you're right. What do you think on that? What do you think?
I've never thought of that. Now I just the only thing I'm not sure about on that theory though is like how old the kid would be, because now I forget also in what episode that happens, because there's for sure 16 years. I don't think so, because there's 16 years. Could be. I don't know actually. That's a great fan theory. I can't refute that off the top. Just don't know how old the kid is. That's the thing, because in episode 8 her kid is maybe 16. I don't even think he's 16 though. So he'd be older than that, because they hooked up before the 10-year time jump. So I don't know, but that would be crazy if we come to find out that that's his kid in season 2. That would be insane.
Well, one other thing the show did, unlike Game of Thrones, is it's not as, I don't want to use the word gratuitous because I hate that word, but like we're getting less like insane violence and sex and nudity, and that could be a plus or a minus depending who you are. But like it's way toned down in my opinion, and like more, it's easier to watch. It's not like I found Game of Thrones, like with some of the violent scene with the Hound and like him killing people and just a lot of like sexual stuff in Game of Thrones. I find like this show's more like tempered down and calmer, which is nice sometimes. The Daemon Rhaenyra thing, we called. I mean, I know at least you called it, Eric. You said they would end up together, but like, do you think it would happen so fast? I didn't. Daemon like went from first 3 episodes like being kind of a prick bad guy, and now he's like, I freaking love Daemon. He's like the muscle of Rhaenyra, and like he's badass. We see him a lot less though, and I'm expecting to see a lot of the Targaryens in episode 10. So really looking forward to that. But, like, did you like Daemon's arc in the 9 episodes so far?
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. It did definitely move fast. Like in the span of 3 episodes, he lost 2 wives and got a 3rd one. So that's like just a fact. In episode 5, we see one, she died. He kills her actually. In 6, the other one dies, and then 7, he marries Rhaenyra. So insane movement. But then again, like a bunch of years have gone by in those 3 episodes, so it kind of makes it a little more justifiable. But yeah, no, I didn't see it coming that quickly, but also not surprised. Like I did think they would end up together. I don't remember if I thought it would be in the next season or not. I also didn't expect him to. I didn't expect him to have a wife in between, like his wife that he had at the start of season 1 and then Rhaenyra, right? Like I didn't think he would end up with that cousin, which I actually liked a lot. Like I liked him with her. I felt like that was an interesting dynamic, and was shocked that she died that quickly. I think they're together one episode and then she died the next or something. So that was pretty wild. No, I liked his story, his arc a lot. He's one of my favorite characters as well. Very badass. Like his, I guess we talked about him mangling the crab feeder early in the season. Yeah, I want to see. Like I said, I think they're teeing up Daemon versus Kristen and Daemon versus Aemon, because Aemon is a wannabe Daemon. That's they have the same letters in their name, little word jumble. They want him to be Daemon, for God's sakes. It's probably why they named him Aemond. So I'm looking forward to that. I do think, unfortunately, I could easily see Aemond killing Daemon just because they're showing him to be a formidable fighter. Daemon is going to kill Kristen, but then it's going to be Aemond kills Daemon, I think. Anyways, that's enough of me saying their names back and forth so many times. Love his character, though. And I love Rhaenyra. Like, I love that they end up together. I didn't mind, I forget his name now. Her husband, Lenore, yeah. He was alright. I mean, not much to say on his character. I'm glad he wasn't killed, to be honest. I think that was a nice little twist at the end of episode 6 or 7, where they fake his death and then he can live freely with Carl. So, like, that was good. I thought that was a good twist. I don't know if we're going to see him again. And you're right as well. Rhaenyra's son, who's going to inherit Driftmark, that's going to be a big factor down the road as well, to get the naval support, because the High Towers have the biggest dragon in the world. So that's going to be a major problem. Another thing also, those 3 eggs that Daemon found, I'm convinced that those are the eggs that Daenerys is going to get. They made a point of saying, like, 3 eggs. 3. Like, all right, Daenerys. That's what I thought. So I think that's what we're going to see. Those eggs at the end of the show be smuggled out to the man in Pentos who had the eggs, and then gifted them to Daenerys. And Sir Ilio or something like that. Anyways. Illyrio. I love Daemon and Rhaenyra, and I hope I like their kids as well. I like their dynamic, like, between the 2 brothers, where the one was kind of worried that everyone was looking at them when they were in King's Landing. The other was like, whatever, let them look. Like, we're Rhaenyra's sons, and we don't look like Targaryens, but who cares? You know, like, that's a good attitude to have on life, like, at a young age, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't, people are gonna judge, like, let them judge. We'll worry about us. So I like that a lot, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing them fight some of Alicent's kids, but they're definitely at a big disadvantage, in my opinion.
Also, you said something like the 3 eggs. I didn't think that's a good call, catch, Eric, because what I think is going to happen, and it could be as soon as this next episode, but, like, this is going to be like the last of the dragons fighting each other, dragon v dragon, and, like, this is going to be like where all the dragons, because there hasn't been any dragons for so long in the first Game of Thrones episode. Like, this is where we're going to see the fall of the dragons, not the Targaryens, but the dragons themselves. They're already in those dragon pits, and they're smaller than normal. So I think we're going to see a lot of dragon action, a lot of, like, dragon deaths.
Next episode?
And that'd be cool if no more dragon. What?
Next episode?
I'd say maybe as soon as next
episode.
Okay,
gotcha.
But probably my prediction is probably for the next few seasons. We're going to see high towers. Basically, like, there are no high towers in Game of Thrones, so, like, the writing's on the wall there.
Yeah.
But, like, the how is what we want, right? How is it all going to go down? That's the thing with prequels. We want to know, like, how it's gone there. I want to see a young King Aerys, a.k.a. the Mad King. Like, is he a spawn of Aemond? I don't know.
Yeah.
You would think, though, that Alicent and Viserys is like Aegon and Aemon, they'd be fine because they weren't born of incest. Where our Damon and Rhaenyra, they don't have any kids, obviously.
No,
but like
they do have kids.
Well, they have the one.
So that
right? Viserion?
They have two. They have Aegon as well. They have an Aegon as well. Of course they do, and they have a Viserys. So you know what? It probably is them who are gonna end up winning because, like, I mean,
Right.
children of incest, and then we're gonna see one of the Aegons or Viserys have an heiress, and then it's like, all right, that's our boy. That's the guy. He's gonna turn everything upside down.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. I forgot there's so many kids. Like,
Yeah.
freaking Damon has kids with like all these factions, the
Yeah.
Valerians, like there's a lot of kids.
Exactly.
Corlys has a big family. Is Corlys gonna come back? There's not a body. They just said he's wounded at sea. Like, are we gonna see Corlys come back? That would be badass if he did.
I think so. Now what? And then what's the dynamic going to be there? Is he mad at Damon for slicing his bro in half, or is he like, yeah, he was an asshole, like he was trying to take my throne, and I'm not even dead. So he might just be like, all right, let's move on and take down these high towers. Which that's another good point. That, like you said, we know there are no high towers in Game of Thrones, but also by that point is the fact that Alicent, like, her last name doesn't get carried out really, and there's still like 100 or so years in between these events in Game of Thrones, so maybe it is her lineage that stays on the throne there. I hope not. I want it to be Rhaenyra and Daemon, but I also liked how a lot of characters questioned those last words, that not everyone was taking it at face value, that yeah, he changed his mind last minute. Even Aegon's like, yeah, he had 20 years to name the heir and he didn't. So
he's not stupid.
Yeah.
I like Otto, like the whole show's super quiet, but at the end, like in the Dragon Pit, like the voice of a natural born orator, like, talking to the masses. I'm like, attaboy, like, he can do everything, this guy.
He can.
I like that. Little touches, yeah.
Otto the orator. Like great character. He's a fantastic villain as well. Yeah. Again, though, I think he needs to go. They all do. And yeah, I agree with you that Dance of the Dragons is going to happen. I don't think this episode coming up, I think it's going to be later in season 2. I'm still holding out hope. Like, I'm still standing on my call that the show is going to end with the fall of House Targaryen. I think we're going to see the rise and fall of the Mad King. I think we're going to see more time jumps for sure. But I want this storyline to resolve itself without time jumps. I want the next time jump to be when one of these two families ends up on the throne, and then we start seeing their kids as kids. I don't want to see Aemond is now 40 and we're still fighting, and that's kind of what I don't want to happen. Because we need Daemon fighting. Like, we need Daemon at the height of his power fighting for Team Rhaenyra.
I think all the time jumps led us to right now, and now we don't need any more time jumps.
Exactly.
Well said, Eric.
Agreed.
Well said. Because all the actors are perfect right now. Like, everyone's where they need to be age-wise. Press the start button on this conflict. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the criticism I've heard of this show. It was like, it's not a super fast-paced show. You even said it's like political talk, political power plays. Not super action-packed, Eric. You can't argue that. Like, there was a lot more action in Rings of Power.
Yep.
There's not that much going on in terms of that. I have no problem with it, but I can see why a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Hoping to see a bit more. I don't want like another Battle of the Blackwater Bay or whatever, but like, maybe more like, I don't know. It's weird because I actually love like the conversations and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe more one-on-ones, like just like duels or I don't know. It's hard to say. Dragon action, of course. That's what I would like to see for the future seasons. Just like show us more.
Mm-hmm. I want to see big set battles actually coming up in the next few seasons. Like, I'm not surprised we didn't get any really, other than the crab feeder one in season 1. Like, they're still developing their budget and all that. But I want to see like a massive battle between these two families alongside individual duels between individuals. So That's what I want to see going forward. And yeah, keep the political intrigue stuff. You know they will, right? It's Game of Thrones. And
Yeah.
like you said, I feel like Rings of Power is probably a more fun watch and more action, which I enjoyed a lot. But like I said to begin, overall, I'm never on my phone when I watch House of the Dragon, and I often was on my phone at the same time while I was watching Rings of Power. And that's not to say I wasn't into it the whole time, but it just doesn't captivate me the same way that House of the Dragons does. And honestly, of people I've spoken to, most people preferred Rings of Power. And I even put a poll up, and it was leaning Rings of Power or enjoyed them the same, not House of the Dragon.
Okay.
So, from the people I know I've spoken to, I wasn't that surprised when I saw the poll results. But then when you look at the reviews online, it's like heavily favoring House of the Dragon, and I feel like the people are rating Rings of Power way too harshly though. Like I really enjoy the show. I still have House of Dragon above it, but I don't think it deserves like low ratings it's getting. Not at all. Like I really liked Rings of Power.
I, like you just said, I like the shows for so much different reasons. Like House of the Dragon, I can't miss a line of dialogue. Like I gotta pay attention 120%. Like dialed in, I can't miss a word because I know it's gonna be important. And Rings of Power, like you said, the phone can come out once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think people think House of the Dragon's pretentious. Just like the people that aren't the biggest Game of Thrones fans are like, oh, everyone loves Game of Thrones. Why is it so good? They just talk all the time. Like, it has a mystique now. Like anything Game of Thrones related, it's gonna have that like, oh, everyone just loves it because it's Game of Thrones. But now with House of Dragon, they're like, okay, it's not as good as Game of Thrones. We know it's not as good as Game of Thrones. At least for me, it's not. It can be though. Like if it has a super strong ending, then we're gonna have a whole different show talking about like what was better, because a strong finish to me is better than a strong beginning. But no, I love them for both different reasons. If I had to pick one, it would be House of the Dragon, just because I'm just so much more invested. Like I care more about what's gonna happen to Rhaenyra than one of the Lord of the Ring characters.
Same.
So better TV in my opinion.
Maybe because we also know where all a lot of the major characters in Rings of Power are going. Like we know Galadriel, Elrond are gonna be safe. We know Elendil is dying. We know Isildur's killing Sauron. Like we kind of know what's happening with those characters. Then there are others that we don't really know what their fates are gonna be. So, but it's still definitely I'm still invested in all those characters. That being said, there and whereas House of the Dragon, everybody's on the chopping block. It's definitely a way to get you more invested as far as caring for characters. That's my opinion, anyways. And I do want to say actually something you said earlier that we didn't have a chance to comment on. I think there's been a lot of shock value in House of the Dragon, man. I want to say every episode has had a moment I'm like, my God, there's like, okay, let's just look back at last episode. The foot scene with Laris, like that was pretty nasty. Like that's in a different way, but that was like an uncomfortable scene. Then I'm thinking first episode there's the C-section. The second episode the elk being killed, that was brutal. Like I rewatched that episode, I fast forwarded that part. There's another birthing scene with Rhaenyra at the start of episode 6. There's even like the child pit in this last episode too, like the claws and like the filed teeth. There's been a lot of crazy stuff in my opinion that's been like shock value in a different way. Like I agree, not as much sex and violence, but still like I still feel like they're pushing the envelope for like what you want to see on the screen. Anyways.
All right, that's fair. And like even just Daemon in like episode 1 or 2, dismembering like thieves and city folk that have committed crimes.
Yeah, episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1. Just you're right. It's got its share of blood. But yeah, I don't have much more on the show other than like I recommend it. Mm-hmm. This show too has so much potential because let's be honest, we have dragons here, and every time they're on screen, they look so majestic and cool. Just watch the last 2 minutes of episode 9, and you know what I mean.
Yep.
That was like bone chilling. Like when the dragons appear like that, the whole world evaporates around me, and I'm so dialed into this show.
Yeah, it never gets old.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Looking forward to the finale. I'll be recording something right after the episode airs and presenting my thoughts on this episode because I'll be able to watch it live, and then pod is going live. Well, by the time you're hearing this, the pod will be going live the day after I do my little recording. So it's been fun talking about both these shows with you, Matt. Both looking forward to seasons 2 respectively. Random recommendations. I don't have that much that I've watched or listened to, but I will say, so I finished The Wire, and it got me starting another HBO show called We Own This City, which I'd preemptively recommended before having even seen a second of it. And it's like kind of a continuation of The Wire almost. It's literally set in Baltimore. It's following the police in Baltimore, and there are a ton of actors from The Wire in this show. So it's, I don't want to say any actors are in there, Matt, so that when you watch it, it's just like, oh yeah, this guy, this girl there. So it's just been cool to see them pop up, and some of them in completely different roles, others in kind of similar roles. So I'm just liking seeing them pop up as well. John Bernthal is the lead, kills it as per usual. I'm only 2 episodes in, but I'm really enjoying it so far. The other one is one that I've only seen once years ago, but again with The Wire, Michael K. Williams, haven't seen him in that show, is a limited series on HBO called The Night Of. Fantastic show. It's kind of like a murder whodunit, if you will, where a guy played by Riz Ahmed and goes out one night, meets this girl, goes back to her place, wakes up the next day and she's dead, and then he gets framed for her murder. And the ride is insane. It's got me wanting to rewatch it, honestly. But if anyone hasn't seen it, I'd strongly recommend The Night Of. And then We Own This City as well. I'm going through it right now, so hopefully it doesn't end up being The Bear situation. But I'm recommending those 2 shows.
The Bear or She-Hulk,
She-Hulk, in my opinion, I like the ending a lot. I'll just say that. Episodes 8 and 9, I was a big fan of.
Oh, okay, I guess I gotta get on that. Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Since I'll be homesick these next few days.
Yeah. Godspeed.
Okay, I'll get back on She-Hulk, not The Bear though. The Night Of, echo everything you say. I loved watching it. I watched it I watched it like when it came out. Loved it. Loved how, I'm not gonna add no spoilers, but loved how it ended.
Yeah, great ending.
That tone, it's bone chilling, just like The Wire ending. Just love that. I've been watching like the shows I've been watching. We just talked about movie wise. I've been busy. I haven't been watching a lot. I'll just recommend. Screw it. I'll recommend a movie I 100% recommended before, but it was over a year ago. So it's on Disney Plus. Togo. It's the dog movie with Willem Dafoe.
Okay.
Togo. Togo.
Okay.
It's honestly, I've watched it like 3-4 times now. It's such an easy movie to watch, and it's inspiring, heartwarming, funny, and pretty badass, to be honest, what this dog does and Willem Dafoe does. It's just, it's a feel-good movie, but like not like cheap, not it doesn't tug on your heartstrings too much, like make you like all sappy and stuff like it. It doesn't exploit that fact. It's just presenting you with a nice story. So that's Togo. I watched other movies. I don't care to talk too much about them. Okay. Maybe we can talk some music a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
I do recommend Freddie Gibbs' new album.
Hey, sold.
Separately. Took me a while. Like I listened to it a lot now, and now I'm loving it. Didn't love it like the first spin, but I'm actually digging like. It's totally different from Alfredo, right, Eric?
Yeah.
Like just the features on there, and I'm digging it though. Like, what did you think?
Yeah, in my opinion, a much more personal album too. I feel like he speaks more on his life experience and his growth as well as a person, which I've enjoyed a lot, like seeing that side of him on a record. But he still comes through with the classic Freddie diversity, and his flow switch up, in my opinion, is insane. He hits some sick melodies too on some choruses, like Money Man with Offset. I actually don't know if that's the name of the song. I just play it from start to finish. And
Song 2?
Song 3. It's the one with Offset.
Yeah.
Well, now I want to have the name. I think it's Money Man is the name of the song. Gotta get that money, man.
Yeah, I like that.
It's Pain and Strife. Not even close. So yeah, great song. But no, I really enjoyed the album big time. even like Too Much, the fifth song with that, which has like kind of a mainstream appeal, like too much, too much. Anyway, I think it's a really great song, and the song with DJ Paul too, Dark Hearted. I want a Freddie Gibbs Pusha T collab album, but unfortunately, Freddie Gibbs has come out and said that he's probably done releasing music, like that this is his last album. So I hope that's not the case. Seeing as I picked him as one of my artists forever, I guess I just have to go back and listen to all of his albums. But no, if this is his last album, fantastic album. And I was kind of worried. Obviously, I'll probably be talking about this one on our hip hop episode there. But I was kind of worried about this album, knowing that it didn't have just one producer. Like a lot of his great albums have just been with like Alchemist or Madlib, and here he collaborated with a lot of people, and like the result was really good. So no, love the album.
Yeah, it's like that one. There's been a lot of like, I think we already talked about them. Like the I can't remember the guy from Flatbush Zombie.
Yeah, Michi Darko.
Yeah, that album's been really good because I've been, the more I listen to it, I love the vibe, the atmosphere of the album. Listen to it on my way to work, like when it's dark outside in the morning, and everything's pitch black because it's the country. Like it's pretty cool.
A lot of bangers on that album. It's and also some personal. Oh, it's a great album.
Yeah.
On God with Freddie too.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. There's been a lot of albums this year too disappointing, but we'll get into all that in the hip hop 2022 show. Is there any albums you've?
Yeah. So I'll recommend one that I like to keep the ones I'll have on my list at the end of the year. I don't like to recommend them, but just so if it's something that you might have not heard, I would like to get it out there. Maybe it ends up on someone else's list too. I don't know. But one album that is released recently, it actually dropped on the same day as Freddie Gibbs' album, is called Fair Exchange, No Robbery by Boldy James and Nicholas Craven. So Boldy James, obviously I've talked about, he's been on a few of our top 10 lists and has been on mine like the last few years. And Nicholas Craven is a music producer out of Montreal, actually. So a nice Canada on the rise. It's a great album, 10 songs. And honestly, for me, it just gets better every time. Like, at first, I wasn't a huge fan on how the album starts. I was like, all right, this is kind of weird. But then from second listen on, I'm like, all right, this is getting better and better. And now it's I have to slow down and listen to it because I don't want to be sick of it. But I think it's a great album, very catchy. Like the beats are insane. And now I'm gonna definitely look forward to listening to more of Nicholas Craven's music because he collaborates with a lot of artists that I like. So it's cool to see Montreal on the rise in the hip hop scene. It's a great album. And if you're looking up the album cover too, Matt, I don't know if you recognize it. Like it's a spin on like the maple syrup can, like that classic can there. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Fair Exchange, No Robbery. It's cool, a great album in my opinion.
Good. I'm gonna check that out like tomorrow morning. Oh wait, I was gonna say I might drive to work, but I ain't going to work.
Oh, that's true.
No Robbery, awesome. Oh yeah, I see the cover.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. One more too, I'll say, Only Built for Infinity Links by Quavo and Takeoff. Actually, a great album. Like I was not expecting it to be this good. Really enjoyed it. It's, in my mind, Culture 1 best Migos album. I like Culture 2 a lot, but this has potential to be better than Culture 2 in my opinion. Great stuff. Big fan. I remember I actually talked about it with Brandon, saying that I was excited for it stupidly, and then he wasn't a fan of the title, thinking that it was disrespectful to Only Built for Cuban Links, which I don't fully disagree with, but apparently they got the blessing on the title from Raekwon. So anyways, I didn't like the title myself. I just felt like it sounded odd. Only Built for Infinity Links, like Only Built for Cuban Links sounds sick. But I know, that being said, the album is actually really good. I definitely recommend it to anyone who enjoys Migos music for sure. If you're not a fan of their music, like, it's not for you. But if you do mess with that, it's good stuff.
All right, I skipped it, but you're giving it, you're endorsing it, so I'm gonna listen to it now. I can listen to Migos. I like their good stuff. I love so. Okay, cool. 2 albums to check out. Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like we've been flooded with albums this year. Like I have a lot on my list right now, and it's great. There's still like 2.5 months or 2 months, so
Yeah, especially late in the
solid.
year too. There's a lot of stuff coming out soon. West Side
Yeah,
Gun dropping an album in a few weeks. Looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, I've got it narrow. Right now, I have a top 10, but I know it's not final because there are some that are fillers and others that could jump in. Um,
right.
when I re-listen to the serious contenders, I'll do full re-listens and make a decision from there, because there's albums that dropped early in the year that I don't listen to anymore, and I just went back last week and listened to one that I had initially in top 10 and took out, but now like, oh no, I have to have this back. It's so good, just because I don't listen to it as much. Like, it's recency bias is for sure a thing, and that's
Yeah,
where I feel like an album might drop in December and then it'll take up a spot of something I actually listen to way more. But because I'm listening to it in those last, like, I feel like Magic, that might have been the case. Did you and Brandon not have it on your like Magic? Yeah, again, great album, but I just wonder if that, like, because it was so good at the end of the year, like, this has to be on here. Maybe it bumped out something that you actually ended up listening more. You know what I mean?
very well said, Eric. I think it did make my list, but not as high as it would have. Or it made Brandon's list, but not as high as it would have.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember.
And that too,
Um,
yeah. Like, maybe it should have been higher.
yeah.
King's Disease 3 actually dropping in November 11th. So stay tuned for that.
Nas,
Still
what an
going.
animal.
Insane run.
Oh, I love it. Probably Brandon's number one.
Probably, yeah.
He's super. I mean, it's his favorite living artist. So, actually, I don't know. He told me his like top five is like Tupac, Redman actually is really high
Oh,
on
okay,
his list.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Redman's crazy cat. That guy. But yeah, that's all I had, Eric. Work's been crazy, and I've been doing a lot of fall stuff. Like I went to another pumpkin patch. Okay, another recommendation. It has nothing to do with media though. It's just like
That's fine.
if you haven't done something in 10 years and you've had an inkling to do it and like go back to the glory days of it. I've been kicking myself for not playing hockey in the last 8 9 years.
Let's go.
I finally went back to it with pickup hockey with the guys from work that do it every week. Super chill. There's no refs, but the skill level is pretty high, and everyone's really friendly, and it's just a pickup hockey game every week. I've been having a blast. First game was rough, but I'm more and more like easing my way into it, like getting my hands back basically. I forgot how awesome playing hockey, how awesome it is, and like I don't know when your league's starting, but if you're desperate for players like as the backup, I'm definitely there to. I'm definitely down to play, Eric, if you need spares one day.
Okay, for sure. Well,
That's what I recommend. Like just
I'll definitely be reaching out to you then before your dad if we need a player, because while he was a very reliable player for us, I'll definitely extend the invite to you first to get you on our squad there if we need players. But no, shout out FC for showing up to the games that you did. He was good for us. But no, that's awesome, man. Is it so? You said no refs. Are there scores, or is it more like shinny based hockey? Like, is there a score in the game?
yeah, no score. No score. Shitty base hockey.
Okay.
There's two goalies.
Okay.
You don't do face off. There's icing and offside, but it's like honor system.
Okay,
You
nice.
know, like dump the like. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But you know what? There's a lot of good players. We get like both. We get the really older players and then the actually good players that played at a high level when they were younger.
Right. Okay, cool.
My dad actually joined me the last two times, and I never played hockey with my dad until those two games, and it's been a blast. So, like, just my recommendation is, if you have an inkling to do something that you loved in the past and you're thinking about redoing it, like doing it again, just do it. Because I've been slacking on this for so long, and I'm so glad I did it now.
Okay, it's a
Yeah,
great
that's all I
recommendation,
have.
and I think that's a great way to cap it off too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot of fun going over these two shows with you, Matt. Looking forward, like I said, see how it ends to Sunday there, and the next seasons for these shows. So, any final notes for the listeners?
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. It really means a lot to me and Eric. I had a blast tonight, Eric, talking about these two shows. It always goes by so fast, and can't wait for episode 100. Yeah, just thank you everybody for listening. Have a good one.
Indeed. So yeah, thanks a lot everybody for listening. Stay tuned for episodes dropping every 2 Mondays. Continue to stay safe. Happy Halloween in advance. Love you all, and yeah, peace.